Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football Monster Week 3 matchup. Texas A&M, Notre Dame, two teams that I think very likely could wind up in the college football playoffs. And you look at Notre Dame sitting here winless on the season. I think people are way too quick to sell their stock in this Notre Dame team. What I saw from CJ Carr in the second half of that football game on the road against Miami, that should give Notre Dame fans a lot of confidence in terms of where CJ Carr can take Notre Dame. Because when they finally took the training wheels off them, when you went down in the second half, said, hey, we got to have you push this sucker down the field if we want to win this game. I thought CJ Carr looked really, really good. And then you look at Texas A&M. I think the biggest storyline heading into this matchup, the biggest difference between what we saw in last year's game is Texas A&M's fired up about what they have in the wide receiver room. Last year Notre Dame went on the road, played Texas A&M. Texas A&M didn't have dudes to pass catcher position. Like Notre Dame was so comfortable just running some man coverage, walking down a safety in the box, say we don't think these wide receivers can beat our defensive backs. Casey Concepcion comes in. Mario Craver comes in. Terry Bussey, Ashton Bethel Roman taking the step. The consensus within the Texas A&M program is we really like our wide receivers in ways we did not last year. Can they go out on the road here, win some one-on-one matchups against some of the better defensive backs we see in the country? That's where I think this game starts. A lot of other intriguing matchups that we're going to see in this football game as well before we get into it. And as always, Texas A&M fans, Notre Dame fans, I'll say this, two fan bases that have shown a ton of love to the boys. Appreciate you guys. Please let it fly in the comments section. Bunch of different ways you can look at this football game. And if y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, I want to start with this Notre Dame offense. There's a couple of key things that I'm looking for. Number one, and I know many Notre Dame fans feel this way too, got to figure out a way to get Jeremiah Love more opportunities, more touches to change the game. I mean, you're talking about one of the best playmakers in the sport that was largely just not a big enough factor week one against Miami. Because you look at this Texas A&M defense and say, all right, number one, a lot of new faces on the defensive line. I would also, and I think Texas A&M fans would probably agree with this, there's been some sloppy run fits for Texas A&M, especially that week one game against UTSA. Look, if you have a sloppy run fit against Jeremiah Love, he will make you pay, and he won't only make you pay for 20 yards. He's going to take that 50-plus yards. He's going to take it to the house. If you're Notre Dame, like, number one, I think it's a no-brainer. I ain't even a football genius by any means. When you have a player like Jeremiah Love, give him as many opportunities as possible to impact the football game. But specifically against the Texas A&M team that wants to shoot some gaps and get aggressive, look, if the more opportunities Jeremiah Love gets, the more opportunities he has to really put some points on the board for Notre Dame, especially against the defense that I like the front seven, but they've given up some explosive plays in the rushing attack. Jeremiah Love can capitalize on that storyline a little bit. Second thing I'm looking at, and we kind of talked about it in the intro, taking the training wheels off of CJ Carr. The frustrating part about Notre Dame in the first half is and I get trying to ease CJ Carr into a football game on the road, ruckus environment. I get all of that. When we saw Notre Dame ask CJ Carr to be a difference maker, specifically pushing the ball down the field, that's when this Notre Dame offense came alive. I don't think you can afford to go through a first half where you leave the training wheels on. I mean, you look at the numbers, CJ Carr, 32% of his pass attempts against Miami were designed screen passes. His average depth to target was 4.6 yards down the field. That was less than what Riley Leonard's was last year. Riley Leonard was sitting around 7.5, and that's still a low number. I mean, you invested in a guy like Malachi Fields. You have a guy like Jaden Greathouse. You have guys that can win vertically down the field. You have a quarterback that showed you he can make those high-level throws. If you want to beat a team like Texas A&M, you have to lean on CJ Carr and what he can do as a thrower of the football, especially with the difference makers you think you have on the outside. Going to be a great match. And you talk about guys like Will Lee going up against Malachi Fields. Those are both going to be NFL draft picks. You got to go lean on your playmakers to go make some plays down the field. Those are the two things I'm looking at for this Notre Dame offense. Here's the X factor. Because when you flip over to Texas A&M's defense, number one, we kind of talked about it, have to be disciplined with the run fits. You have to be disciplined with the angles that you're taking as second and third level defenders. Because if you take a bad angle on Jeremiah Love, he's going to kill you. We can live with a 5-yard, 6-yard, 7-yard run. What we can't live with is 80-plus yards and taking it to the house. So number one, consistent with our run fits, taking good angles when we're our safeties coming down and supporting the run. The biggest storyline is, can Texas A&M win on first and second down and force Notre Dame into some obvious passing situations? Because this was a problem for Notre Dame against Miami. When Notre Dame's tackles have gone against some really good edge rushers, there's been some struggles. And this ain't a shot at Emil Wagner. It ain't a shot at Anthony Knapp, two tackles that I think will have NFL careers and are solid football players. Cassius Howell is one of those kind of guys. Cassius Howell might be the most underrated football player in the country through the first 2 weeks of the season. This kid's probably going to go top 50 in the NFL draft. If you are sitting in those third and obvious passing situations and you allow a player like Cassius Howell to pin his ears back, get after CJ Carr, that's a problem if you're Notre Dame on offense. Again, it's not a shot at the tackles. It's just what we've seen. When these Notre Dame tackles go up against elite caliber edge rushers, they have struggled in pass protection. Cassius Howell is one of those kind of guys. Those are the matchups that I'm looking at the most on the Notre Dame's offensive side of the football. Now, you flip over Texas A&M on offense. The storyline to me is, number one, we haven't seen Texas A&M totally lean on the ground attack yet. I think that was by design. Playing UTSA, playing Utah State, we know we will win those football games. We're pretty confident that we could run the football if we wanted to. I think the bigger point of emphasis from Mike Elko was, you're not treating those games like preseason games, but in a sense, you kind of were. We're going to force the issue with Marcel Reed throwing to our pass catchers because we want to show that we can do that. We want to give Marcel Reed the opportunity to get comfortable with some new pass catchers that you have on the outside. Running the football on the road here going to be important, right? And I think you're going to see Texas A&M lean on this rushing attack in ways you haven't seen them do just yet. Here's the mismatch, and we kind of talked about it with that Miami preview as well. Notre Dame's got arguably the best linebacker room in the country, maybe outside of Georgia, right? On the defensive line, they are trying to replace a lot of really good football players. Some players that were the most important players on this Notre Dame team at times last year, talking about Riley Mills, talking about Howard Cross. It is a smaller Notre Dame defensive line. Well, if you're looking at Texas A&M and like, well, I ain't no genius. Chase Basantis is your smallest offensive lineman. He is 315 pounds. This Texas A&M offensive line averages over 325-pound offensive linemen heading into this matchup against the Notre Dame offensive line or defensive line, excuse me. It's a little bit smaller. Again, I'm not saying Notre Dame's defensive line is bad by any means, but they are just a smaller unit. Can you get to some of that inside zone and just get your offensive lineman teeing off in the run game and stay on schedule a little bit? That's number one. Anytime you go on the road to an environment like Notre Dame's going to have, being able to run the football is absolutely key. In the passing attack, Texas A&M threw the football for 100 total yards last year in this matchup. They did not have a single guy that could win their one-on-one matchups. Here's the storyline: yards after the catch. Texas A&M had 50 yards after the catch in that game against Notre Dame last year. Through the first two games for Texas A&M, they're over 300 yards after the catch. Lean into what Marcel Reed does well, and that's getting the ball out quick. And then lean into what your wide receivers do well. That means excelling after the catch. You talk about Casey Concepcion. You talk about a guy like Mario Craver, some of the more dynamic pass catchers in the country when they have the football in their hands. That's what you're looking for here. At least the way I look at it is, last year we felt like Texas A&M's offense, what Colin Klein wants to do, you didn't really have the personnel. Like, Noah Thomas wasn't a bad wide receiver, but he's not a yards after the catch demon by any means, right? This year, your personnel matches up a little bit more with what you want to do on offense, and that is ball out quick to our playmakers and excel in those yards after the catch situations. That's what I'm going to be looking at, right? And to do that, you have to have some guys that can separate, because I don't think it's a secret what Notre Dame wants to do. We talk about this every time we preview a Notre Dame game. They're going to play a lot of man coverage. They have a ton of confidence, and rightfully so, in these defensive backs. Who are the guys that win against men? Casey Concepcion, Mario Craver, they got to win. Marcel Reed needs to get them the ball early, and they need to excel after the catch. Those are the crucial matchups that I see in this game. Getting into the pick here, Texas A&M 6.5-point dogs on the road against Notre Dame. And this hurts me to do it, because I really do like Texas A&M. And I actually think Texas A&M, even if they do drop this game, will probably make a run at the college football play. I think they're a significantly better team, specifically on offense, than what they were last year. With some of the bad, a little bit of sloppy play from Texas A&M on defense, you're still trying to figure out who your best guys are up front on the defensive line. Jeremiah Love's going to get the ball a lot, and I feel like he's going to find some explosive plays. And I'm going to take Notre Dame to cover the 6.5, get it done at home. If this game was in College Station, we're probably talking about a different story. And again, y'all can sense this one hurts me, because I really do like Texas A&M. But what I saw from CJ Carr in that second half, the flip, that switch for this kid, kind of unlocking that vertical passing attack, it's hard to bet against Notre Dame. I think they're one of the better teams in the country. I'll take Notre Dame at home here. We might see this again in the college football playoffs. Texas A&M fans, y'all can let it fly in the comment section. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we're going to talk to y'all later.